Strategy for learning Hebrew verbs. Okay, I want to talk about how to learn these Hebrew verbs, or at least my suggestion of a strategy. If you turn to page 544, which is where we were looking at the last module there, you'll see the strong verbs. The strong verbs are the forms that are covered in Ross chapter 26 to 31. And after that, he has a little review of it. If you turn the page over, page 546, you'll see something called first guttural verbs. And then you'll see something called first aleph verbs on the next page. You turn the page again, you'll see second guttural verbs. First nun, first vav, first yud, third hey, hollow, and geminate. So you got all these pages. You got several pages of tables in addition to page 544 and 545. How are you going to learn all that? Well, first of all, what is all that? All those other pages are what you call weak verbs. And they are verbs where one of the root letters is weak. It's either a guttural or aleph, which is really a guttural, type of guttural, or a nun in the first position, or a vav, or a yud, or a hey, or there's something else going on. So they're all kind of, some people call them irregular verbs. I don't want to call them irregular because there's lots of patterns in there. But there are changes that happen because of those weak letters. But all those pages build on page 544. Okay? So my suggestion is this, and you can take a look. I have a document called Strategy for Learning Hebrew Verbs, and it should be available with these modules, wherever you're viewing these. And I go into detail there, so take a look at that for more details. But I want to cover the basics of that document right here. I suggest approaching it this way. I see three levels of Hebrew verbs. Level 1 is your strong verbs in the cal. Okay? Strong, some people call them regular. Strong verbs in the cal. So this is column 1 on page 544. And everything builds on this. The rest of this page builds on this, as I said in the last module, and all the other pages build on this page. So this is a set, if you want to be efficient in your learning, this is a set that you should know like your signature. Know every dot. It's 36 words, so it's not that bad, but if you really learn this well, it will really pay dividends because everything builds on this. So this is your basic foundation. It's most efficient to learn that really well. The second layer are the rest of the strong verbs. So really what you're talking about are the other binyan. Strong verbs. And they, of course, build on this set. Now, in the strong verbs, I divide them up into two groups. One is a bit more important than the other. The nifal, the pl, and the hifil. These are the most important of the other strong verbs. And you pretty much want to know these like you know this. Here you add the nun, here you have the doubling, and here you have the hey. Now the other ones, the pual is the passive of the pl, and the only difference is the vowel change. If you know the pl, the pual is not hard to recognize. So that's why I delegate that to a bit lesser status. It's a little less important. Well, I shouldn't say important. Important sounds like the verb doesn't matter. What I mean is that if you're going to spend energy learning verbs, you may as well spend it where you get good payoff. And these are the ones where you're going to get better payoff. So the pual, if you know the pl, the pual will come fairly easily. Likewise, if you know the hifil, the hofil will come fairly easily. And the hitpile, which is the other binyan of strong verbs, is easy to recognize because you got that big hit thing on the beginning. So these are the ones you really want to focus on for the rest of strong verbs. And then your third set, of course, are the rest of those pages, the weak verbs. And what I recommend for those is you learn the principal parts principal parts of select binyan. Now the principal parts are the first verb in each set of paradigms. So for the perfect, you would just learn the perfect 3ms. Pakad for the cow strong, for instance. And then the imperfect 3ms. And then one verb, the first one in your list for each set. So preterite, you would learn the preterite 3ms, jussive 3ms, cohortative, the 1cs form as opposed to the 1cp form. Imperative, just learn the masculine singular imperative. That would be your principal part for the imperatives. And then your participle, whichever one you have, unless it's cow, you only have one, active or passive. So learn the masculine singular form, and then each of the infinitives. If you, and again, you can look at my document for this. If you take a look at all the rest of these pages here, what I do is I select 30 of them, 30 columns, and the principal parts for those. And what you can do then is you can put them on index cards. So you end up with 30 cards with something like 6 to 8 words per card, and draw them in the same structure all the time. So you have perfect, you have imperfect, whatever you want to do, just make sure it's always the same structure. And if you put those on index cards, 30 cards with 6 to 8 verbs, if there's a hole there, if you don't have a passive participle for your particular binyan, then leave it blank and move down. So you can just glance at the card and okay, this one doesn't have a passive. This one doesn't have whatever. This will give you a skeleton. And this is not, or let me put it this way. These 30 cards is a whole lot easier to memorize than all those pages. And if you know this, then when you're doing your readings, you can come back and at least you have some sense of what's in those pages, some sense of how to get a grip on those weak verbs. But this is my strategy. This is my recommended strategy, is put your energy where it counts. And the most basic is the most important, because these will all build on those. So strong verbs in the cow. Know those like your signature. Know every dot. Nefal, PL, and Hifiel are the strong verbs. Know those well. Learn them. Learn how to write them. Learn how to say them. And then the principal parts. Put them on cards. Now, what we're going to do here is, which chapters here? Chapters 26 through 31 in Ross, we're going to cover this here. We've already done this. All the verbs up till now, we've gone through all the different forms in detail. Now we're going to do one chapter at a time, or one chapter per binyan. So chapter 26 is Nefal, and then chapter 27, I guess, is PL, on my list here, whatever the chapters are. And then at the end of the strong verbs, and generally this is now second semester, we go through this. And especially when we get into here, we're going to have charts and charts and charts. Ross has lots of charts, more than he has at the back here. But don't get overwhelmed. If you remember that this is what you have to memorize, or this is what you have to know well, then pay attention to what he has in his chapters covering this here, which is chapter 20 or 32 to 40. Pay attention to that so that you know what's in there, so you can come back to it. You can use it as reference, but don't feel the need to memorize all that. You really can't do it unless you're a robot or something. Okay, this is my strategy, and take a look at the document Strategy for Learning Hebrew Verbs, and it'll have this outlined in a bit more detail.